Hey everyone, welcome to our weekly Let's Try series. This time we're trying out We Got Another Year. This is by Douglas Kim, who I've been reading his comics on and off for like the last decade or so at this point. At least I remember reading the Lion comic and the Call Me series. I don't think I've read We Got Another Year though, because I think there's a comic that's related to this game too. Let's take a look at this though. This game is a work in progress. Many audiovisual assets and features might be missing and will be added in future revisions. Grammar mistakes might be present too. During play, you will come across choices that affect the story. Some of these choices focus on intuitive responses, rational responses, or neutral responses. Red is intuitive, blue is rational, white is neutral. That's an interesting way of like breaking them down. We'd like to see a marker indicating which choice is which? Sure. You can change whether or not to show the markers at any time in the preferences menu. Let's see. Choose an episode. Lonely. Let's get started. Ah, thank you. It's very nice of you to say so. Now, as far as how we've met, it's quite something. It was all the way back in 2015, in college. A friend introduced us. Then we met and things, well, let's grab another drink. It's a lengthy story, but well worth it. Oh, voice talents. Hello. Okay. I recognize a few names in both columns a little bit. Do forgive me if I get some details wrong. I'm quite beyond tipsy now, and honestly, it's been so long. Some very memorable things happened, but others, I try not to recall that often. I was living in a dormitory and studying at New Nikon Estate University. It was the beginning of our third semester. Boring, I know, but that's when it began. Classroom 304. In the library building. Huh. Who knew the library building had classrooms too? I've walked this campus up and down for a whole year and I'm still finding hidden nooks and crannies. This place is like an English muffin of learning. What a comparison to make. Did you guys know there were classrooms in the library building? Yeah, there's about 20 of them. Why? 'Cause I didn't. Sort of surprising. Really? Haven't you ever been to the library building before? No, never had to. Well, what about the study groups? You never joined any of them? They're great. Helped a bunch with classes last year. Yeah, the freshman brochure had a lot of information about them. This is intuition? I get a red rim lighting on my face. Huh. Oh hell yeah, amigo. Great idea. I'll join the study groups between work and classes. Who needs to sleep anyway? The opportunity had been presented to you. A posse of bachelor wannabes helping one another. You politely declined. Clubs, you say? It does immediately give like the slight Disco Elysium vibe of like, oh, there's little warring voices in your head that actually have their own voices. Okay, interesting. Let's see. I'm too cool for school and its clubs, or I don't have time for that, or exploring. So they're both there's both no's ultimately. Nah, I'm too cool for school and its clubs. Anyway, if you still have the pamphlets that they handed us last year, there's a lot more information on what the university has to offer. You should check it out one of these days. I might, yeah. I was somewhat overwhelmed last year. You're always overwhelmed, Rob. To be honest, life itself is overwhelming. Do they even know that the shit you go through every day? Do they even know about last night? They do not. They cannot possibly know of it. There is no reason to burden your friends with tales of commotion. But don't worry. Don't worry, I kind of forgot to look up where the room is at. That's not encouraging at all. That's fine and all, but still. It's kind of worrisome, Rob, to see you start the semester already exhausted. Don't you think so, Cal? Kinda. I guess. You always look tired. Like you're almost about to lie down and take a nap. Your eyes are always baggy, and I think I only noticed you getting a haircut, like, once. Not to mention how you use the same clothes for a couple days in a row, sometimes even 3. And that one time you showed up in your night owl uniform because you had to rush to work. Wearing the same clothes for multiple days, what, like some kind of VN protagonist? And also with the way you speak sometimes, sort of morose and... Okay, I think that paints quite a clear picture, doesn't it, Rob? Puta mierda. Is that genuine concern? Stop the presses. People are being nice to you for a change. Capitalize on this. Ride that feeling. God knows when you'll get a taste of it ever again. Their assessment is correct. Exhaustion is clinically one of the leading causes of, and main symptom of, much greater maladies and disorders. They cannot quite change your situation. They will not pay your bills, or do your work for you. The less they concern themselves with your situation, the less you'll be reminded of it during your daily interactions. Come on, they want to connect to you. If you push them away, they'll know it. Things will change forever between you 3. Changes are not always desirable. You know how the situation stands now. You do not know where it will be where it will be at should this situation escalate further. Well... Oh, the buttons are gone. I work a lot because I need to. To be honest about our income problems. Work was a bit busier last night. We had a full shift. A lot of people showed up, some even students from here. Then the fuckers showed up. The real cause of your lack of evening rest. They are students here, and perhaps they even remember you. And they'll still be angry at you. Although a lot of people were still up very late. They're definitely not showing up today if they're students here. I would not show up either if I could. Environmental laws sound like such a bore. Such a bore, huh? Peculiar choice of words. Is that bad? Come on, Cal. Don't you want to learn how to sue the trees? It's actually the other way around. Oh, the trees would be able to sue you. In theory. I know, it was a joke. It's too early for jokes, Leyland. Wow. But isn't it too early for formal names, eh? Oh my god. Whoa. Achias, I guess? I think? Such a betrayal, calling me by that name. Yeah, sure thing, Lee. No, the real betrayal is you pendejos not taking criminal law with me after lunch. Come on. 2 seminar classes, one after another, is too much for me. My brain would be mush if I did that. Yeah, the timing between these classes is kinda awkward too. I want to spend lunch trying to remember one class, then go into another still thinking of trees and stuff. We've done that with constitutional law and the contracts last year. And administrative law and torts. Honestly, Rob, I don't know how you manage to study and work like this. Like I said, it's less that I can and more that I have to. But we've been 1 year of law We finished 1 year of law school and we're still kicking. What's 3 more, am I right? Yeah, right. Anyway, class, huh? Yes, class. Yeah, class. Classes. It's been interesting seeing the art style evolve over the years. Specifically the added definition that was added to everyone's faces over time. The cheekbones and stuff. I noticed. Everyone's here already. Talking to one another. As they always do. I see a few new faces here. Probably the people from the previous semester who are gracing us with their presence again. And, of course, the vast array of other people who I've never seen before. Probably from some other major. I wonder what other majors also have... to take environmental law. Bald teacher. Wild introduction. Good morning, class. A minuscule portion of class replies back. Wow. Is that the attitude you all want to start the morning with? Then again, I woke up today and noticed something very odd. I woke up and noticed I could hear back through time. About a year or so ago, when you all enrolled in your majors and groaned when you saw environmental law in your curriculum. Of course, some of you groaned because it was not the first year, and we all know how you're dying to learn about EL. But no, the majority of you groaned for another reason altogether. Now, we're among friends here, so let's be honest. Raise your hands, those who thought or think that environmental law is boring. As people started to raise their hands around me, We can just skip the class? What? Was already halfway into falling asleep. I don't know if that just skips the class text-wise or if we physically leave. Keep my hand down like my life depends on it. A large portion of the class raised their hands earnestly. Everyone then chuckles immediately when the teacher also raises her hand after a few seconds of suspense. See? We're on the same wavelength here. EL sounds incredibly boring. But it doesn't have to be. So, how does one make a class more interesting? Simple. We talk about weird, enticing things that most of you have kept at the fringes of your lives, but are very aware of it. Like cannabis, or weed, as some of you might call it, or pot, or Mary something, or whatever name you're using for it nowadays. I heard people calling it green burrito a while ago, so who knows? And how does that comes into EL? Well, while a big portion of its personal usage, consumption, prohibition, and other things are treated in criminal law or constitutional law, it is legal in some places, and where it is legal, it has to be regulated, like any other plantation or large agricultural business. It needs to be planted. Whoever plants it needs a license. What else are you planting in those fields of yours? How big of a plantation is this? Are you aware of the environmental repercussions of cutting down all these trees to plant your weed? What about bugs? Are you using a pesticide? We need to know that. Where are you transporting these plants to? Is it legal over there? They can't be transported in a way that allows them to be replanted. I imagine you get the picture. Same thing with tobacco, alcohol, you know, legal and illegal drugs. I can and will go on about environmental law using drugs as our starting point because afterward, it's pretty universal and easily transferable from one thing to the next. If you're no longer an individual, such as a small business or large company or industry, environmental law applies to you, and we will be discussing them a little more in depth throughout this semester. I can see some of you leaning forwards. I guess the topic caught your interest. But first things first. I never even introduced myself. I am Fatima LeBlanc. and I'll be teaching you possibly a few questionable things throughout this semester. Now, this is a mixed group, so I'd like to get a better read on the class. Raise your hands if you are an administration and business major. Some people that were grouped up on the left side of the hall raised their hands, along with a few stragglers all over the room. Okay, what about law majors? A different group raised their hand this time around. Some people at the right side of the hall, and a few in the front row of desks. Also Cal, Lee, and I. That's quite a lot. So, how about... After a bit of introduction and preamble, the class finally began. As the class went by, a lot of reading material was recommended, and a metric ton of book names were jotted down on the board. Immediately, both Lee and I looked at Cal, who sensed our gazes upon him, but he didn't turn around to face us or anything. I imagine that we both thought the same thing, and decided to inquire with him whether he had the time. After about an hour and a half of a long but very lively lecture later, the class had ended, and we promptly emptied the classroom and returned to the cramped halls of the library building. Lunchtime came and went by. The three of us had a final conversation before parting ways. Cal was off to his paid internship at the library, after which we'd have the dinner and the night class. Lee simply left and went home, which was a short walk away from campus, and then he'd return to a night class along with Cal. As for me, after lunch, I launched another expedition on the campus to find a classroom in the administration building, which incidentally is nowhere near the library building for some ungodly reason. Soon I found myself in another classroom that slowly started to fill with students, none of whom I knew, not well enough to sit beside anyway. Eventually the new teacher showed up, scribbled a few things across the board, and went through a similar introductory lecture like in the previous class. Unlike the previous class though, this one wasn't as crazy, and the teacher didn't have the whole class participating in the explanation as well. He passed on a class attendance list to a student in the front row. They signed their name and passed the list backward to the rest of the class. Eventually it made its way towards me, and down there on the long list of names I saw my own. Roberto Torres Nieto. I signed in the black square right next to it. That matches today's date. My attendance for this class was accounted for. I finished signing it and passed the sheet to a girl that was sitting beside me. She examined the list for a while before looking back at me with a smile and said in a hushed tone, "Hey, Robbie, can I borrow your pen?" I was about to say, this better be a character, the classmate next to us. Because once we got to the second class, I'm a little bit like, is that how you want to start the story? A bunch of just descriptions of us going to class, but not like characters and plot necessarily happening, because it's easy to fall into the trap of writing down a lot of like procedure about how certain things work, when most people know how those things work, but also the details of how that stuff works often doesn't affect the plot in a super compelling way in these kinds of stories. And there's been a few VNs I've played that spend their first hour kind of just detailing a day in college in great detail, but not really in a way that's not really helpful, because people know what college is. Like, how do I put this? Like a movie or even a show will have scenes that take place in classrooms, but you're not going to have the show explain what college is, for example, or what classes are, and like go through that in like great detail, because culturally people understand what this stuff is, so that it's essentially, it can be wasted script. I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit by discussing that here, because I don't exactly know what its overall balance is going to be, but I'm like, famously, lectures are boring. So opening with lectures is a rough thing to do with an audience that you're hoping to like have stick around and like read the thing, because like best case scenario, people follow it obviously. Worst case scenario, they stop reading, and then a surprisingly common middle ground thing that happens a lot with visual novel readers, they just start hitting A bunch. They start mashing until something more interesting happens. sometimes because they're hoping to get to the sex scenes, which I don't even know if this one actually has them or not, so that might be not on the table. But people do get in the habit of being like, of just kind of skimming ahead when things get kind of boring. And it's very dangerous to set scenes in college classrooms if you find yourself explaining like procedures and steps and a bunch of actions that might not be especially like have emotional stakes. Hey Robbie, can I borrow your pen? What'd she call you? Not the forbidden name. She does not know your hatred for that moniker. Correct her, now. Don't let her keep calling you that. Will you even meet her again? Might as well save your breath. Oh, the pen. So we need to pick Rob or Roberto. We have two different names that are both valid, apparently. Rob seems even less formal, and Roberto seems more formal, I guess. That's the idea. Like, this is the correction of, like, this is my name, by the way. Which she presumably knows. But it's essentially a curt boundary setting of use my full name. And this is like, nope, this is the nickname that people use, by the way. Sure, but please, call me Rob. Ah, of course. Thanks, Rob. She then started to look over the list of her for her own name and made a signature there. But instead of passing the list forward, she looked around for another name and signed that name as well. Only then she passed the list forward and handed me my pen back. Ooh, how scandalous. That's illegal, you know. Signing for an absentee is definitely against the school rules. And you're an accomplice now. She used your pen to do it. It would be nice to have someone cover for your own absence. Hey, are you... Wiggle my brows in a meaningful, accusatory way. Oh my god, that face. I wiggled my brows in the most accusatory way that I could towards her, and she caught on quickly. I know we shouldn't do it and all, but... I'm watching out for a friend of mine. I was afraid he wouldn't show up. He did the same thing last semester, and if you miss all classes in the first week, they forfeit your opening. But don't worry about it. I'm sure he's just late or had to attend to something important. I see. Hope he's alright. Yeah, he will be. Thanks again for the pen, Rob. Sure thing. So you're done with it? Aren't you gonna need it for the class? Granted, day one stuff can just be like basic setup stuff and no real like lectures. Although that might be more reason to write things down actually, given how much stuff you might need to take in. Although you would hope they'd have a handout for standardized information being distributed. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Marcus Moore. I recognize a lot of you from previous semesters, from constitutional law and administrative law. Professor Moore started his lecture after a very brief introduction. We will be learning about criminal law this semester, but I reckon we start a little slower and review some basics of society first beforehand. Those words mean the same thing. The teacher started to go through a lengthy explanation of humanities and the individual's place in society. A lot of it was a big recap of things I had seen in previous semesters in his classes. As he carried on with class, I watched over the girl, or took notes of it all. Watched over the girl, what does that mean? Something was drawing me over to this girl. I was wondering what was up with her and her friend. Soon enough, I found myself trying to picture who they would be. Criminal law is in place to prosecute those who do things that are harmful or damaging to other persons and property, along with other things too. But where does crime stem from? A person doesn't just decide to commit a crime out of nowhere. There is a basis for that. Socioeconomics issues might cause an otherwise moral and civil person to resort to crime out of desperation. Lack of opportunities and other such problems, like misdemeanor or petty crimes, as people colloquially colloquially call it. Conversely, a person who realizes that they can get away with crimes if they follow specific steps, adhering to loopholes or acting on the impulse of not getting caught, are people with a criminal mindset, a mens rea, a guilty mind. I wouldn't call the former a crime of passion per se, but it's much more linked to a person's fragilized emotional state than them having an innate disposition for committing this misdemeanor, knowing full well it's a crime. Whereas the latter knows full well the extent of what they're doing, how harmful it is, and decides to move forward with it regardless, feeling overconfident in their knowledge and expertise. In psychoanalysis, there are many explanations and theories as to why people turn to crime and where it stems from. One such belief is that people breaking the balance between the instinctual level of thinking me and the society-oriented logical thinking of we. Leaning too much on your instincts, well, can be self-explanatory, whereas leaning too much on the workings of society can turn you into a more analytical, cold person. And without knowing if a person has a mens rea, crimes stop being a matter of simple black and white, and become hundreds of shades of gray. Let's see. Okay, here we're definitely doing something that's interacting with the text, so it's essentially tutorializing the core decision that's happening, where we go back and forth between the red and blue options. Which crime is more damaging or culpable than others? Should we just look at it all under the lenses of this is what our criminal laws say, or should we examine a bit further? Did you say law?
Law.
Law.
Law. Law.
That's not what I thought he'd sound like. Looking at each case individually and seeing where it came from and what led to the culprit to it. I want you all to keep those questions in mind as we discuss more throughout the semester. In an ideal world, we'd look at every case and pour every resource we have into it to make sure that things operate in the best way possible. But in reality, we can't. Our society is too big, and the legal system is already slow as it is. So, if we come across weird laws, keep in mind that several decades ago, psychoanalysis wasn't a thing, and cases needed to be sorted out fast, and certain laws just stuck. As the class went on, a lot of people had already stopped paying attention. Oof. Granted, Professor Moore wasn't as articulate and interesting as Professor LeBlanc, but some of us did our best to take notes and pay attention. And of course, yet another dozen books have been recommended for reading. One seemed to be authored by Professor Moore, and some of these books were printed nearly a century ago. That's always a bit of a conflict of interest when the professor recommends that you buy a book that they authored. Studying either was a pretty grim prospect. Surprisingly enough, the girl beside me was enraptured by the whole lecture. I almost thought of striking up a conversation about class and the deeper works of sociology, but before I could say anything... See you later, Rob. With that short sentence, she started walking away. In fact, the room started to empty as more and more students started to make their way back home into other classes. I got up and walked out of class, about to do something else. Thankfully, classes are back, and I'm able to use my student pass again. No more walking to work. Now I can just ride this crammed thing packed with people. Doesn't sound that positive. Huh. Wait. Huh. Yeah. It's interesting that the text didn't choose to identify what he's on, which I assume is a bus. But could be a train, depending on the setting. I walk into the somewhat busy coffee shop. There's plenty of tables with people already having coffee and small meals, and some others with beer and other alcoholic beverages. I walk past all of them and straight into a side entrance leading behind the counter and off to the side, into the employees only area. On the way, I shoot a glance at my coworkers in acknowledgement. Jimmy Johns! What the heck? You're here, really? Classes have started again. And what do I do with that information? It means I can use my student pass again. Ah, so you're fancy now. Oh, God, no. If riding the bus is fancy, I don't even want to know what isn't. You say that, but Derek from the morning shift just, walks just to save the bus money. So paying for the bus is fancy. Half the bus. I'm only doing it because of the student pass. Otherwise, I'd be doing the same thing Derek does. Working the morning shifts? What? No. What? Walking to work, you weirdo. Then don't stop that lovely education while you're getting at uni. Then don't stop that lovely education you're getting at uni. Be a fancy lawyer who can pay the bus fare, unlike us plebs. Plebes? Plebeian. Yeah, plebes. I feel like people say plebs. Frankly, I never actually use this word. is the real answer. Sure, Jimmy Jones. I'll try and do that. After putting on my apron and putting on my most friendly face, I was ready to begin my shift at the Night Owl. I expected to have gotten a good internship by now, but I didn't quite work out yet. Either they didn't hire me, or the pay was too low, lower than here, and I really can't afford to have any cuts to my pay. I applied for an internship position at Clark & Miller law firm last week. They're my last option now. If that doesn't work, I'll have to double my efforts to get tips from the patrons with my winning smile. Most of the remainder of the evening was resigned to waiting tables, taking orders and cleaning tables every once in a while. A little later in the evening, though, when the place got a little more empty, our manager, the owner of the Night Owl Cafe, called me and Jimmy Johns to a meeting. He certainly wanted to talk about the incident of last night. I got so busy the whole day that I even forgot to collect my thoughts regarding it. After making sure my apron was properly aligned for the 7th time, I started to walk towards his office. Ah, crap. You think it's about... I know it is. Couldn't be about anything else, really. It's okay, Robert Stein. Don't sweat it, okay? Now you're the one who's making us worry. Chill down, man. You have done nothing wrong. There's no reason to worry. Calm down, Jimmy Johns. You're making me anxious now. Okay, let's go. Then we stepped into our boss's office.
Okay.
Roberto, James, sit down. We did as we were told, me trying to emulate the okay I just heard. Uh-huh. Ah, damn it. Water. Okay, I get the gist of the situation, but I'd like to hear from you two what exactly happened last night. So, let's hear it. Oh, it's this fucking song. Whoa, where else have I heard the song? It's fucking with me. Wait. Is this in an H-Bomber Guy video? Am I crazy? I'm like, wait a minute. Wait. Shit. I don't know. I actually don't know. We were just having the night shift as usual. There were quite a lot of people here last night. It was pretty full. Then... a group of jocks came in. They were 8, I think. I think they mean that there were 8? Or at least that's a reference to how many of them there were, at least. They were kind of loud, but we didn't mind at the time. We kept working, but they also kept getting louder and louder. So they started getting kind of nasty. Afterwards, oops. Many homophobic insults were thrown around. I think they were insulting one of their friends. It was starting to get out of hand. We were talking among ourselves to see who would deal with it and how. In the end, we decided to both go. We asked them to keep it down or leave the establishment, but they didn't like it. And then... they said they could do whatever they wanted to. And the loudest guy started shouting at us instead. I think he might have been drunk.
Okay.
It was then you decided to call the counselor, right? Yeah. Rob goes to the same college these guys do, so he knew that they were in a team and how to call their coach. He said we'd do that if they didn't stop. Then one of the guys turned up and started to try and talk them down. But the other guy kept shouting louder and louder. At this point, the whole place was looking at all of us. But the guy didn't care for it. Finally, just let him finish this time. We called their counselor then. Rob got his phone and dialed the college. It was late on a Sunday, so they couldn't get the guy. It was enough to scare most of them, so they grabbed the loud dude and started to walk him out. They didn't even pay the bill as they were going out. In the end, the problem kind of sorted itself out. To a degree, yes, but now we have another matter on our hands. The university got in touch with the counselor, the team's coach, and, of course, we can't get a straight answer out of his boys. He wants to know why we called, and solve problems if there was any. And that's what I want to know from you. Do you want to tell the counselor about it all, or just drop it? I'm asking mostly because I know your schedules are quite busy, and you'll need to be taking some time to sort things out with the guy. And don't worry, I won't deduct that from your paychecks if you choose to do it. But in the end, it's up to you. Heck yeah. I mean, those guys are pretty nasty. They need to be punished for it. Don't you think so, Rob? Disciplinary measures are necessary for the betterment of their personalities. The lack of anonymity is concerning. Brace yourself for the conversation with the coach. These guys were so hecking angry. Also drunk. Very, very drunk. Maybe not so bad when they're sober? Who knows? If only you had a way of knowing more about them. Well... yes, we need to see this through. Besides, it was pretty offensive for everyone. Very well.
Hey.
Still, despite all of this, we need to keep a little more vigilant in the future for when such problems arise again. We won't always have a trump card like someone else we can call. I'll set up a couple of meetings throughout the week, a briefing for the staff on how to deal with the situation. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, James. That'll be all. Of course. Sure thing. I think I lost track of what his tone was after mostly reading the other characters. I was like, oh shit, what was it doing for the eagle earlier in the scene? We got up, our minds still heavy with all that was discussed in our boss's office. I don't suppose either of us expected things to go this way. It was certainly an unexpected shock. Although I'm happy to know my boss has got my back in case any problem shows up at work. It's unexpected that when you call somebody to report someone that you might have to explain it to them later. Hey, Rob. They don't know what's coming to them yet. I mean, they should expect something, but think those guys will ever show up here again? They'd have to be out of their minds to come back so soon. But... I hope they don't. Well, I want to be here if they do. But we don't always get what we want. They might even be back with the whole team to have a party or something, knowing our luck. Anyway, gotta clean those tables. Again. Jimmy Johns then just turned around. Clearly the conversation between us was over. Was? Wait. I should try to remember how much it's been in present tense or past tense. Wasn't it in... I thought it was in present tense earlier. Now I'm gonna be thinking about it. The night went by without any greater incidents. Just the usual order, taking a while longer to go through, people having credit card problems, and a couple people who are confused about coffee types. I think I'm just like in my own head because the last game was written in a different tense and it was throwing me off. Although in particular it's because it had an interrupting narration that was in a different tense than the rest of the narration periodically. Yeah, I think it was all in past tense. I think I'm remembering some earlier narration being like that. It's a bit of a surprise because so consistently furry visual novels are in the present tense. After my shift was over, I headed back home. Or as much as the dormitory I was able to afford could be called a home. The house I lived in was shared by 8 people, myself included. I barely ever got to see the rest of the guys with my crazy schedule. I think they also don't even know that I exist until weekends come by. They certainly don't notice when I come in late at night after work. Thankfully the floor is carpeted and I don't have to clop all over the place. Oh, he's got hooves. It's not always clear if they're gonna have hooves or feet. As I lie down in bed, I stare at the ceiling, like every night, thinking back to several choices I made throughout the years. So far, they've been worth it, but at the same time, it's been exhausting. And now that classes have begun again, so too will the grind. It's easier just to shut my mind and go through the motions until the semester's out. But I can't just do that, even if I tried. It takes a much higher level of being dead inside to achieve that, I'm afraid. Oh well. I pick up my cell phone to idly look at notifications I've been gathering through the day before closing my eyes and trying to sleep. But of course, my brain keeps replaying things that happened today in vivid details and alternatives for how things could have gone. I wasn't expecting the commotion of last night to get me so tired today morning. Today morning? This morning would be what you'd go with, yeah. What did I tell the guys about last night at work? I don't like venting to people. Something must have taken over me. I also met that girl today, in class. She must have thought I was a dick by correcting her on my own name. Then again, she saw my name on the list and immediately called me by a nickname. She's one of those people. The sociable kind. Okay, so they didn't know each other then. Interesting. Yeah, the fact that she used his name, but the wrong one, made me think she already knew him on some level. Just because I don't know how easily she would find him on a list that's probably like alphabetical or something. I don't know. I assume it's not sorted by seat numbers unless the seats are also alphabetical or something. Since they're not filling it out from top to bottom, but instead having to search for their names, then she'd have to be watching him sign it to know which name was his. Anyway, gotta watch out for her. Work tonight, though. I wasn't expecting much to come out of the commotion. Those guys are the worst. They deserve whatever's coming their way. I moved away from my family to escape this kind of homophobic shit, not to endure most of it. Fuck them. I won't let them get away with it. Did the lighting change? Did I hallucinate that? Maybe. Now, to endure more of the grind. Interesting approach. There's there's voice acting, but it's just grunts. It's not. Well, I think that one character said law, so that's technically a word. But yeah, they're not reading the occasional line out loud or using like a series of phrases that convey certain emotions, like some Japanese furry visual. No, I say furry by default. That some Japanese visual novels do. Good morning, Tuesday. Tuesday didn't answer back. I got everything I needed ready and left the house. Ready to start a new day. Hola. Hey. Sup? Did you manage to sleep any better today? Did you rest well, Rob? Yeah, aside from some weird dreams. Anything spooky? Nah, just the usual nonsense. What about you guys? How do you like crime law in the evening? Not as interesting as environmental law ended up being. I was half expecting the professor to teach us how to do crimes. Like that Bay con man who was a teacher, but also a swindler. Ha! Of course Cal would remember the Bay con man. Huh, is that so? Really, Cal? I found that class fascinating. The whole bit with the Professor Moore was talking about the one time he visited a psychiatrist hospital for criminals and such was wild. When he talked to a super chill guy for nearly an hour about old time movies and played cards. Then he asked the guy what was his crime, and he said he murdered an entire family. Yeah, like, holy shit. The mentality of people and how it affects and is affected by society is totally my jam. I had a great time in crime law yesterday. What about you, Rob? How was crime law in the afternoon? I've lost track of all the different law classes. Kinda lame without you. Was he not? Is that the one he said he was in? Wait. I thought that was the class he was just describing. I might not be following very well with the class names. Shit. I met a girl. Oh. Don't even start, Lee. Well then. The books we have to read for that class seem very old. 1907. That part doesn't sound like fun. Ah, yeah. Some of these boys aren't even about criminology itself, but rather psychology. What was the point of introducing that we met a girl if we're not going to talk about it at all, and then bristle when somebody even acknowledges that we brought it up? I looked one of the books up. It's actually in German. Wait, really? Well, the original is. The one that was on the list is a translation of an Italian translation. What? Why? Yeah, but he did mention that the original is much better than the translation we got. Can you read German?
Oh.
Not at all, no. But I have the afternoons free, and we can still enroll in optional classes, so I thought of taking up German 101. Taking up a whole class just to read one of the books in an optional translation for one of your classes? It's not going to be a simple book, Lee. It's a legal book for college. All that for a book? Well, not just the one book. There are other books by the same author, all of which are in German, and they all seem very interesting, really. I see. Bro, you're not going to learn German to read legal books for a class you're already taking. But no. It was actually that I tried looking them up at the library, and they were out already. The people from the afternoon class snatched them before I could. You work in the library, Cal? Can you help me out? Well, I'm still getting started with it, but I suppose I could. You could hold off the book, or let me know when it's available. I'll see what I can do for you, Lee. So you're really diving deep into the reading list, huh? Yeah, why? He likes people more than rules, doesn't he? Lee's such a dork. Lee's a dork because he likes people more than rules? That sounds backwards, right? It sounds like he should be saying, like, this guy likes rules more than people. What a dork. That longing stare, that wistful thinking. If I were to wager a guess, Lee's thinking about switching majors. I was wondering. I need to read them too. That's all. That was a strange thing to say afterwards. Yeah, I should read them too. That's all I was thinking. Message over. We could read them together and share ideas. That sounds interesting. I don't know if I have the time for that even. It's alright. We'll fill you in on what you need to know. It'd be hard to share ideas then. I guess some ideas, but they're all colored by the person conveying them to you in the first place. Yeah, because that's what friends do. Yeah, that it is. But are you sure you're on top of your game, Rob? You seem somewhat distracted. Just some problems at work. Nothing too serious, though. Oh, snap. What happened? Is everything alright? Yeah, it's just some jorks being homophobic is all. Jorks? Okay, he did say it too. Okay. Jerk jocks. What? Unacceptable. Nope, I'm not accepting this at all. Oh yeah? You weren't with us when the jorks were being very cheeky. No, when was this? Oh, last year or so. It's been a while. But anyway, do you want to talk about it, Rob? It's nothing too big, really. But shouldn't it be? I might end up missing class one of these days to talk to their coach. That's not good. Can't you do anything about it? I don't know. I'll have to talk to my boss. Although this is still the first week of classes, there's still a time to... If there's any time to miss any, this is it. Still, you should try to avoid missing classes. But anyway, were they being homophobic with you? They call you any names? Oh yeah, horrible, disgusting names we shall never repeat. They have no idea how much those words hurt. Well, they said some offensive things, but... They didn't even know about me to call me names. You had to intervene, right? Yeah, me and Jimmy John's my coworker. But like I said, it's already happened. Gotta focus on the road ahead. Alrighty then. And hey, if anything comes up, let us know, okay? Of course we will, right? They're your friends after all. There is not much need to bother them with your plights. They are currently manageable. Alright, I will. Thanks, guys. You know it, Rob. We've done nothing. We're looping. We're looping. My greatest fear. Every day is exactly the same. There is no trouble and there is no fear. Is that I actually don't remember the words for that song anymore. Alright, well, that's a whole day. That's probably a decent place to stop for now. This is We Got Another Year, and you can check out the link in the description to check out the current build, and you can also follow the creator to get email notifications when updates happen and so on if you would like to see what happens next. I'm going to have to take a rest here and rest my voice because I'm going to be doing Knoll-playing games soon. For those that don't know, I have a tabletop channel called Knoll-playing games, G-N-O-L-L, that kind of Knoll, like as in the hyena men. Where we play a variety of tabletop games. Actually, we've been doing a different rule book every single season, and we're like 5 or 6 seasons deep now at this point. We're actually coming up on soon to be the season finale of Cape Escape 3, which is a big deal for us. Some characters we've been living with for a few years in some cases. Mountain of fan art about that stuff. Like, dear God, it's really fun to be a part of that whole project. But yeah, I'm gonna take a break and be ready for streaming that with my voice in a minute. So thanks for watching like always, guys, and I will see you next time. So this is some interesting context to find paging through here. So I don't really remember how this game ended up on my desktop. I probably just downloaded it based on vibes at some point and didn't look too closely. So the game is discontinued, actually. You can play through the rest of Chapter 1 as it exists, I think, and it's also translated into, I think it was Portuguese. But it was then discontinued, and then the creator went on to readapt it as a comic, akin to like all the other projects, which might be what they're more adapted to doing. That's not a great use of using the word adapted twice back to back like that. They're more used to doing that kind of format. It kind of makes sense here. Immediately, that like you get more dynamic visuals. There's more obvious conflict. You can see there's the scene that we've alluded to in the visual novel so far is actually on the first page in a single panel flashback to give you a hint about the conflict that was happening there. We don't get to have the back and forth question of whether or not the protagonist should have like should be feeding this or that emotion between like instinct and logic in a Disco Elysium sort of way, because it's now just a passive thing. But you do have much more dynamic visuals the whole time through, different colored backgrounds, different expressions, and so on. It's more fun. And right here we can even see that we skipped the environmental lecture and went straight to the second class instead in this book. I haven't read any of the actual text on these pages yet. I'm just going by the visuals so far, but immediately it's like, oh, this is a very different pacing. So like on page 5 we're already meeting the girl, and then on page 6 we're already at work. Like only on page 6 we've already made it to work, and we're going to then have to address the conflict. And hey, there's the lion from their, like, I think their first comic, definitely the comic I first found like a decade ago, that keeps showing up as being part of this shared universe that these all take place in. Then you have the workplace dispute that is at this point like half of the comic so far, which makes sense because it's actually about some conflict. And there's some more intense emotions being shared here. And then the end of the day. So that's how far we got. So everything we just did is summarized in 12 pages, which is definitely a different pace. I think I was on the right wavelength, pointing out that like it's very easy to go too far into like falling into summarizing a bunch of logistics and procedure when you're writing everything and having to narrate it all. Whereas when you play it out visually, given how long it takes to draw and so on, I think that a comic artist will instinctively end up creating better pacing, because they're like, okay, I got to make every page count, and so it kind of leads to kind of like some faster paced, more interesting storytelling in many cases. Sometimes I miss the peak of furry comics, which I feel like really took off around like 2016 to 2018 when everyone was getting Patreons, and then the current hype surrounding furry visual novels had not taken off yet because Ad Astra wasn't out yet. So like a few existed, like Four Letter Word and Nekojishi, and the work in progress versions of Echo and so on, which are the same people that made Ad Astra anyway. But I think with the popularization of Ad Astra, a lot of artists found a new way to try to still tell their stories, but in a way that they're even less used to telling, because they're not, instead of telling it through a largely visual way like this stuff, a lot of comic artists then started trying to tell stories that are mostly text, and that is actually a very different skill. I've said it before a few times that like in many cases, furry visual novels are often made by an artist with thousands of years experience and a writer that's essentially trying this kind of project for the first time, which leads to the disparity in like how a lot of them are structured and handled. I definitely thought that the visual novel that as it existed could do with the revision, but it looks like the form that takes is just instead that it's going to be done in this style instead. And then speaking of which, looks like they're already on chapter 4, so if you actually had any level of intrigue with what we were covering here, there's a lot more to read if you want to. Either way, I'm gonna head out. See you guys later.